Book Review is proud to present the author of The Daddy Rock, Michael Kannengieser.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out. And I want to thank Stephen Bonsignor for putting this whole thing together. And I want to thank the Book Review and the owners for making this all possible. I want to thank every single one of you for coming out on this rainy night. So I just want to talk a little bit. I had something I wrote. I wouldn't be a writer if I didn't write. And those of you who know me know that I have no problem speaking. I have problems with microphones, though, especially being so tall. Anyway, I have a short thing I wrote. Hope all of you like it. And I'll answer some questions afterwards. I'll talk a little bit about how I got here. Almost 12 years ago, I was in the process of getting a manuscript published. Holding my then 2-year-old son, Jeffrey, I walked into a Borders bookstore looking for the latest copy of the Guide to Literary Agents and Publishers. At the information desk, Jeffrey squirmed in my arms. He needed a diaper change, and I really should have brought him home. But I was eager to mail out query letters to literary agents, and I didn't want to walk out of the store without that book. A young girl at the information desk who helped me guessed that I was a writer from the title of the book I asked for. And she said, "So you're a writer, huh?" "Yes. I wrote a book, and I'm going to have it published," I said. My restless son took a bit of the edge off my cockiness. It's hard to be impressive while holding a toddler with a stinky diaper. "That man at the table over there wrote a book. You should talk to him," she said. The girl pointed to her right. At the table sat a gentleman in his late 30s looking somewhat distracted. There were rows of empty folding chairs in front of him, and seated at his side was an older gray-haired woman. On the table were copies of his novel. The author saw me approach and smiled at Jeffrey, who was trying to escape from my clutches by making his body go limp and slide from my arms. The author introduced himself, and I told him my name, and I shook his hand. The novelist I met that day is Jay Nussbaum, and the book he was there to promote is The Blue Road to Atlantis, his debut novel. We spoke for a while about writing and the route to getting published. Though we had a lot in common, we were both rejected by the same literary agents. We liked the same authors. We had the same ideas about writing fiction. We were worlds apart. Jay was a published author, and I was not. That is a giant divide. Jay asked me if I ever read any books on writing. Of course I did, I said. I took creative writing classes in college. I had a copy of Strunk and White's Elements of Style. Jay stopped me in mid-sentence. "No. Did you ever read any books on writing by an author?" The answer was no. I never read a book by an author about writing. He took a pen and a small piece of paper from his briefcase behind him. I watched as he jotted down the title of the book he suggested that I read, or I could not become a writer in his opinion. Jay also told me I could find a copy of the book in the store we were in. That book is called The Writing Life by Annie Dillard. You know that book? By that time, Jeffrey had become a smelly, fidgeting, and neglected 2-year-old who, if he could have expressed his feelings, he would have told me to take him home now. I graciously thanked Jay, accepted an autographed copy of his novel, and tested Jeffrey's patience even further while locating a copy of The Writing Life before checking out. It's a good thing I read The Blue Road to Atlantis before cracking open The Writing Life. Jay Nussbaum is a talented and thought-provoking writer with a flair for humor and drama, often in the same scene. Annie Dillard, a well-known and accomplished novelist, presented a brutal, unvarnished opinion of writing and authorship, and this particular quote struck me. "The written word is weak. Many people prefer life to it. Life gets your blood going, and it smells good. Writing is mere writing. Literature is mere. It appeals to the subtlest senses. The imagination is vision, and the imagination is hearing, and the moral sense, and the intellect. The writing that you do that so thrills you and so rocks and exhilarates you as if you were dancing next to the band is barely audible to anyone else." In my nascent, unpublished state, reading such eloquent yet severe words from a renowned author made me want to abandon my dream of becoming published. I mean, if Annie Dillard had such a dim view of the art of writing, who was I to attempt to entertain anyone with what I had to offer? Ultimately, Annie Dillard's The Writing Life is about perseverance, and doing your level best with the talent you're given. So I moved on and continued sending out query letters and improving my craft. It wasn't until I became managing editor of fiction at the international literary magazine The View from Here that I discovered what it takes to write commercially. From that experience, I learned to not only be critical of another writer's work, but to examine my own stories more carefully. Using the knowledge I acquired in my role as editor, I rewrote the Daddy Rock and then submitted the manuscript to a handful of publishers. Finally, I signed a contract with Decent Hill Publishing. From this vantage point, I now fully understand the sense of fulfillment Jane Nussbaum experienced while sitting in that Borders bookstore a dozen years ago. The chasm between us, me, an unpublished writer with dreams of finding a home for my novel, and a published author, is now closed. The Daddy Rock is really the third novel I wrote, but the first I had published. It is because I'm a husband and a father that this story exists. Like most writers, I do most of my creating away from the keyboard. Usually I'm in my car on my way to work, ruminating about life when an idea evolves within me. It was during my commute to work almost 3 years ago when I thought about my wife, Nina, our children, Juliana and Jeffrey, and how much I cherish my family. And I imagined in a very dark way what my life would be like today if they were taken away from me. That fear, the sudden jolt one gets when an unsettling notion consumes them, formed the kernel of the Daddy Rock. Roger Price, the main protagonist of the story, was born at that moment. This tragic figure instantly became a sinner and a man sinned against. He quietly sought cosmic justice while it was meted out to him. His deeds had been forgotten, yet not forgiven, and his devastated world needed to be pieced together again. And I remember from that flash of inspiration being so anxious to run home to my computer and begin writing that I could not concentrate on my job that day. It took 4 months to complete the first draft of this story. Another 2 years of rewriting and editing brought the Daddy Rock to the acquisitions editor at Decent Hill Publishing. Months later, an acceptance email arrived in my inbox, and this is where I am today, in the same position as the author I met a dozen years ago at a small table in a Borders bookstore with my words and characters bound together in the pages of a book, and hoping that this writing I do, that thrills me and rocks me and exhilarates me as if I were on stage with the band, can be heard by everyone else. Thank you. I'll take some questions. Am I sweating? Anyone know that? Okay. My wife told me not to wear a T-shirt under this. Thank you, honey. You're my new manager. Well, anyway, anyone who knows me at Five Towns College knows I've been writing for a long time. And this store is an independent bookstore, and it's one of the last on Long Island. And one of the things I appreciate about independent bookstores is they really cater to the community. I don't get the same sense walking into a Barnes & Noble that they really care about what people want to read. If you think about the 1890s, that's when movies were invented. And you think about today, with everything on demand, everything that you can just rent, and people still go to the movies. So in my opinion, books will always be around. You can have the Kindle, the Nook, iPad, iPod. You'll want to hold that in your hand. You want to feel it become warm, the book jacket. You want to feel the pages and turn them and put your favorite bookmark in there. And everyone has our habits with them. You can't quite prop a Kindle or a Nook up on a pillow in front of you at night. You'll want to always do something with the pages of a book, but they're still right there every time you read. I love books. I love writing. I love people who read books. So I'll take some questions, if anyone has any, before I sign some books. I know you do.
All right. I do know Mike. I've known him 12 years. Did you, when you first started, did you do any of your work in the library or anything like that? Or did you do all your studying there?
I did all my studying in the library.
Okay.
When I left the police department in 1999, that's where I met Stephen. I actually started studying for my Microsoft certifications in there, away from home, going in there. And I must say I have a long history at libraries. I worked in a library as a teenager in the high school. I worked in the Copig Memorial Library, and I started out at Five Towns College working in the library. So Stephen, I have to point out, is a librarian. All right. Anyone else? No? Yes?
How'd you get the title?
You see, most authors. You're getting the answer right there. It's one of those things you have to wait till you get to the end. But there are clues on the front cover. On the front cover, there are some clues. But if I told you you wouldn't have to read the book at all. You know, there are people selling spoilers out front. All right, so for $10, there's a guy making a huge living spoiling books for you. You don't have to read it. You just, you know. But no, I'm sorry. 4 years of my life devolved into that rock. You know, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Did you always know you wanted to write, or
Yes.
you did?
Yes, I remember, in fact, writing a story probably when I was about 6 and showing it to my sister Christine, and it was the most ridiculous story ever, and it had no point. But I do remember that because I was a kid and I didn't know anything, the story took place in the city, and the guy wanted to get to the 3rd floor, so he took the 3rd floor stairs. And now I know that it's an elevator. But if you go into the city, most elevators don't work, and you end up taking the stairs anyway. So, anyone else? No? Yes? Hi.
You get what they call writer's block, where you
Yes.
just have to get away for it for a while?
Absolutely. I'm doing that right now with a novel I'm writing about my father's life. And I put it down and I walk away, but it doesn't mean I stop writing, because as I mentioned in this little thing that I read while I sweat all over it, that I do most of my writing away. Most writers have to have something to do while they're creating. And when you're putting it down on the page, it's just mechanical after that. The key, though, to writer's block is if you're writing fiction, because I don't write just fiction. I write for a law enforcement journal also. I also used to work at The View from Here magazine. I write, believe it or not, a lot of articles about writing for various publications. If you have well-developed characters, if you have a strong story for them to follow, they'll write the story for you. Your characters write the story for you, and they talk to each other for you. Not in an insane way, but in a literary way. Wow, I see more people. Yeah, hi.
You start with the end.
You have to have an ending. You have to get to that ending. You know, everyone has a great beginning and a great ending, and they have no middle. But the key, again, with fiction, I mean, when I write an article, I have to, you know, the gentleman I write for now says to me, give me 1,200 words on this. It's dry. You know, it's all law enforcement stuff. I was a cop. I spent 2 weeks writing an article on community policing, and I was on the radio last night talking about community policing for an hour and a half. All that stuff bores me to death. It's very mechanical, and I just plow right through it. I get done right away. There's no such thing as writer's block. It's just, I might as well be gardening. Don't get any ideas. But with your characters, again, the first thing that I thought of when I thought of this book, and with my other novel that my publisher wants to see, and the one I'm writing now about my father, that I'm fictionalizing about my father, is that world, that person that you need to know everything about. You need to know what they would do if they walk into any situation. You need to know what they would eat for breakfast in the morning. And when you have a very real character, other real characters want to talk to them too, and they pop into your head. And there's one character in this book, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to sell my own spoiler to you right now. There's Old Man O'Neill in this book. If anyone reads this book, please tell me if you liked Old Man O'Neill. I worked on Old Man O'Neill forever. No one mentions Old Man O'Neill. Let's give Mr. O'Neill a chance, please. All right? Anyone else? Yes, Professor Walsh.
How much is autobiographical, or is it sort of based on stuff you did, or sort of, kind of, or
Yeah.
a little bit, or a lot?
All fiction writers, in my opinion, are not only narcissists, they are plagiarists of their own life. But Roger Price is not much like me, but his world is. He lives in Smithtown, right? He grew up in Copiague, where I grew up. He visits a store where his friends are in Lindenhurst. I talk a lot about Lindenhurst, and for some reason I grew up in Copiague. Maybe it's because of my own self-loathing of growing up in Copiague. But I'll tell you what, you do end up writing about yourself and other characters. There are other characters I sneak bits of myself in. But if you do, like me, have a lousy attitude about things, you have to have someone counterbalance that. We could have to take that edge away, because then it starts to seep through where everyone knows it's your opinion as an author, and you can't have that. Thank you. Yes?
You mentioned Copiague. I went to Copiague school.
Yeah, oh, you did. Where? Which ones?
Well, all the Copiagues.
Yeah, I went to Duval Gardens. Yeah, what did you go to?
I graduated in Copiague High.
Oh, yeah, Copiague High. Now it's Walter G. O'Connell. What year did you graduate? Oh, no, I'm not going to ask you what year you graduated.
Copiague is known as Bears.
You graduated in 1990, right? Okay, sorry.
Oh, I don't recognize you, but...
I graduated in 81. I have most of my brothers and sisters in here. I'm number 5 out of
My
6.
sister, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, who's your
I
sister?
have 5 brothers and a sister.
Oh, gosh.
Relays.
Yeah, of course. Someone in here knows the Moulets. Yes, we'll talk.
Copenhagen is, I grew up in, and it's such a great school. Also, I grew up in Lindenhurst.
Yeah.
I'm a publisher and you're a publisher. Obviously, Copenhagen was a good school.
Terrific. You know what? I say that because I'm me, But, of course, we all go back to our own hometowns. We all, my mom and dad are no longer with us, and dad passed away in 2009. I almost feel bad because I have no reason to go back to Copenhagen anymore. And when I do travel through anywhere near Copenhagen, I always take a journey back to the old homestead and take a look and see who's around and people on the block and stuff like that. You never lose your roots. You never lose your connection to your home. And that's why Copenhagen is in the book. If I truly hated it, I wouldn't have come up with Mr. O'Neill that no one seems to care about, maybe because he lives in Copenhagen. All right, I think yes, hi.
I know a little bit about your dad's life from your brother.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's going to be an amazing
Yes.
story.
And every time I peel back a layer about my father, who never really spoke, and if anyone who knew my father, who's a big man, who was a true bass, I'm a baritone, and when he spoke, my friends were afraid of him. And he was the nicest guy in the world, a big, big heart, and he never complained all the way to the end. And his last audible words, after the priest, Father Gregory, said to him, your family's here for you, and his words were, I'm here for them. That was my dad. His life was so complicated, so amazing. And this book, tentatively titled, can I take this off? Now we can rock. This book is tentatively called The Heart of Velletri. And Velletri is a town in Italy, just outside of Rome. And that's where he was wounded when he was in the army. Is this turn off?
Yeah.
I'm terrible at this.
You don't need it.
I don't need it? Thanks. Big mouth. Thank you, Stephen. Not to go into too many details, but this book is taking an awful long time to write because of the drama involved, because of the things I'm learning about my father, and I'm learning what a man he was, and I'm hoping I measure up to him. Okay. Is that it?
No, I got you.
Okay, the librarian has some questions. Okay.
Put the mic down because it's not working.
It's not working, okay.
So you talked about character development.
Yes.
In order to say your character development, did you create a history, a backstory separate before you even brought it to the page?
No.
How did you develop character?
They basically pop into my head, and I go into. It sounds stupid, it sounds weird, but if you've ever written fiction, you discover them, and then you learn about their life. And it's truly bizarre. When you're writing and everything's working, you just go, 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 go. Like I was talking about before, when I write about writing, occasionally my publisher wants me to write something for them, and I do. I still occasionally write for The View from Here. It's all mechanical. Just comes right off the page. It's what I know. I'm writing about mowing the lawn or something like that, just making sure my wife's paying attention, that's all. I could be writing about anything, and it just comes to me because it's what I know. You don't know your characters. You have to find out about them. It's exciting. You really sit there and you say, and if you know a character, there are occasions I come up with a character that I feel is not working. Note, Mr. O'Neill. And I say, well, maybe I should drop them. There are things about this particular book. There were 3 entire dream sequences in this book that are gone. I had someone read it and they said, you did a great job with these dream sequences. They're really fantastic, eloquent, very visual, and they do absolutely nothing for this story whatsoever. Lose them. And with all the skill of a Civil War surgeon, I took them out. They're not there anymore. So anyway.
Oh, I got none.
Okay. He's writing my biography.
In order to write, do you have a creative setting, a space, a procedure, or is it just wherever you are?
Funny you mention that. And I'll talk to a lot of...
These were planted questions.
Planted. He works for the guy selling the spoilers out front. Now, actually, all writers, in my opinion, again, all fiction writers are protagonists. We protagonists. Procrastinators. See, I did it again, honey. On a radio interview, I made up a word. I thought symbology. I wanted to say symbolism. So we listened to the podcast afterward, and she said, "You idiot! There's no such word as symbology." I said, "I hope no one noticed that. I hope they think I'm so smart that I come up with these obscure words. Turns out there actually is a word, symbology, and lo and behold, it fit into the conversation. So I'm not an idiot after all." I did that with all the eloquence of a drunk choking on their own puke. But symbology, I'm going to use it again. All writers are procrastinators. We don't want to write as much as we want to. That's why we write away from the keyboard, because it's more fun to think about it than to actually do it. And I do have a ritual. It's called sitting at my computer when everyone goes to bed and writing until about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there in the sun. Now that I'm published and I'm making money at this, and I say to my wife, I'm going to go write, she goes, make me money. Yes?
What was your inspiration to write the book?
Oh, well, the inspiration, again, well, it came from my adorable family. If you wanted to talk about being a part of yourself, yeah. This book was born mostly out of my family and my love for my family. And the protagonist loses his family. I'm not giving anything away. It's on the back jacket of the book. What do you do? How do you come back from that? How do you repair your life? And then when you find out you still have a family that you never knew about, how does that affect you? And then what do you do when there are mafia people trying to kill you? Yeah, just yeah.
Happens to me all the time.
Yes.
When you develop characters in your head, do you ever picture a particular actor or actress? I think this.
You know, in my very first manuscript, which will never ever see the light of day because it's so awful. Yeah, I thought Vincent D'Onofrio for a character I had named Martin Spratt. That book is 96,422 words as it stands right now. I know that. But it's never going to get edited. It's never going to be rewritten. I just can't get around to it. I have too many projects. That's my book for me that I will read in quiet embarrassment late at night every once in a while to get ideas. But this other book that the publisher wants to see that's ready to go right now, character named Jack Chase, nothing like me at all. There are people in there. There is a character, a certain Professor Walsh I know, would play a great lieutenant. And if that book is published, and it's going to, and it ever gets made into a movie, there's a desk lieutenant sitting right there who'd be great at it. So I do invest. They may not be stars yet, Richard. But there's a star on the Walk of Fame with your name on it soon. Yes. Anyone else? No? All right, Stephen, I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. If you haven't purchased the book yet, you can go to the front counter of the store and get yourself a copy. He's going to be signing right over there. Okay? Line up.